It's officially day 8 of 31 Days of Horror-Ween 2017. And I'm going to try to do this next entry about as quickly as I can because I really don't have a whole lot to say about this one. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty bad. It's from 1945, House of Dracula. Now here's the thing. A lot of people think the idea of there's being a deluge of sequels and remakes and spin-offs and just absolutely beating franchises into the ground until it's deader than, Elvis and bell bottoms. I mean, that's not a new concept. I mean, going back to the 1940s, the Universal Monsters franchise was just loaded with completely superfluous entries. And 1945's House of Dracula, I don't think it was the first crossover. Well, no, of course it wasn't the first crossover because you had House of Frankenstein, which came out a couple of years earlier than this one. And it's pretty much the exact same plot. So it's an utter and just completely pointless rehash. Just out there as a cash grab, and it's really bad. I mean, you got Lon Chaney Jr. in there, and you got John Carradine. It's cool to see them, but overall, this is just not a good movie at all. Basically, you got the entire lineup here. You got Frankenstein's monster, even though for most of the movie it's just kind of kept in suspended animation. You got Dracula. You got the Wolfman. You've got not one but two hunchbacks. You got mad scientists. You got pretty much all the tropes and cliches you can want here. And the general idea is that the Wolfman comes to see not Dracula, but the owner of the castle. There's a guy named Dr. Edelman. Why are they calling them Jews? Like, is there a reason for that? I mean, I'm not even gonna go there. But anyway, the thing is that Dr. Edelman, he's supposed to be a guy who can like reverse monsterism. Like he tried to turn Dracula into a regular human again. And basically the Wolfman comes to him and says, "You gotta change me, Doc. I want to be a normal human again." And he just can't do it, and he tries to commit suicide a couple of times, and eventually he shows him Frankenstein the monster, which is like buried underneath the castle. So he brings him out, and he's working on, bringing him back to life. And the Wolfman and Dracula are trying to say, "Hey, don't do that." There's a subplot about a nurse who's like a hunchback who's trying to get him to, not do evil things. And you got some inspectors who show up, and then you got even more villagers showing up. So you have like 4 or 5 different villains in the movie, all lapping over. And then it's just subplot city, because then you got Dracula coming out trying to, turn the Wolfman's old squeeze into a vampire. It's just completely, just way too much stuff going on, way too many ingredients. Even at 67 minutes long, it's just an absolute cluster schmoz of a motion picture. And the thing is, the ending, the whole thing is supposed to be a lead up to Frankenstein being resurrected. And he does, and he goes on a rampage, but things over and done within like 4 minutes. I mean, it's just so much stuff going on with Dracula fighting the Wolfman fighting the mad scientist, and then the Wolfman's girlfriend fighting it's just so much stuff. Completely just absolute plot overdose in this movie, and there's just no fun to it. Not at all. I mean, House of Frankenstein, which is basically the predecessor to this one, really wasn't a good movie, and this one is even more watered down and half-hearted than that one. It's just a bad, bad cash grab from the worst decade of horror, in my opinion. But they kept wheeling them out. Universal Monsters, I mean, they were doing this stuff all the way up until like the early 1950s, just trying to, beat that horse until it's like super dead. Just running with it for as long as they could carry it. And they had a couple more. There's, I think Ghost of Frankenstein came out after this one. I'm not really sure about the chronology, not that it matters, but just, I got nothing. It's just what it is. It's a really needless sequel. It's really boring. The characters aren't there. Everything is completely by the numbers. And you can do better. If you want to watch Universal Monsters, go back and watch the originals. Watch the original Frankenstein. Watch the original Dracula. But this stuff just ain't doing it for me. Alright, so using our patented tofu dog rating system, I'm going to give this one 1.5 tofu dogs. It's just not a good movie at all. So that's it. That's day 8 of 31 Days of Horror-Ween 2017. Come back tomorrow, it's day 9, and we're in the 1950s, I believe, which means we actually have good movies again. Not only that, we actually have one of the best horror movies in the 1950s. Well, actually, I'll take it a step further, one of the best movies in the 1950s period. So stick around for that. We need a palate cleanser after this House of Dracula nonsense. It's a good one. Don't miss it. I'll be seeing you in a few.